Greetings. Thank you for tuning in to this 2020 General Election Candidate Forum for the 22nd District Legislative Representative Position, number 1. The forum is presented by the League of Women Voters of Thurston County, along with Thurston Community Media Network. This forum is being held electronically. Candidates, moderators, and timers are all joining using Zoom links with help from TCMedia. The League is a nonprofit organization that encourages the informed and active participation of its citizens and our government. The League neither supports nor opposes candidates or parties. We are nonpartisan. The League registers new voters. We study issues and advocate for positions with the legislature and other government bodies. Despite its name, the League is open to everyone age 16 and up. I'm Annie CUBBERLY from the League, and I'll be moderating this forum. A timer will show a sign when you have 30 seconds left, and then again when you need to stop. The candidates for this position are Laurie Dolan and J.D. Ingram. For this forum, candidates will each have an opportunity to answer a series of questions in alternating order and ending with a 1-minute closing. Some of the questions have been contributed by the Asian Pacific Islander Coalition South Puget Sound chapter. For the following questions, the first respondent will have 2 minutes and the subsequent respondent will have 1 minute to respond. I will alternate the questions so that each candidate has a chance to go first. So here's our first question, and I'm going to start with JD. What is your top priority for the legislature in the coming year?
My top priority for the legislature is to figure out the budget mess that we're in. And I'm not going to tell you that I have all the answers because I don't. I think it's going to take a lot of discussion. There are a lot of very difficult things we're facing. We have a huge shortfall right now. And even though the revenues were down, our government went right on spending money just like the revenues were normal, and that's created a huge problem for us. Like I said, I don't have all the answers. I'm willing to talk to people on both sides of the aisle, and we're going to have to talk with department managers and agency managers to figure this out. I'll stop there.
Laurie Dolan, would you like me to reread the question?
No, I'm good. Thank you, okay. Annie. So I'm going to agree with my opponent. I think the biggest challenge facing us in the 2021 session is to figure out how to balance the budget. We as a state have spent a lot of money helping our most vulnerable citizens through COVID-19, helping our small businesses. The Employment Security Department has put in tons of overtime with all the millions of calls they've been getting. So our first response has been to just help vulnerable citizens through this crazy time that we find ourselves within. So now we have about a $4 billion hole in the budget, and we're going to have to figure out where can we either add revenue, cut programs that are not essential and don't hurt vulnerable citizens. Everything we do needs to be done through an equity lens, because some of us are able to get through the COVID-19 in pretty good shape financially. Others need a lot of help, and we need to make sure that we help our most vulnerable citizens, including our children.
Thank you. Okay, the next question. There's been a steep increase in the incidences of bias toward Asian American individuals, including racial vandalism, since the pandemic began. How will you help combat this wave of anti-Asian violence and discrimination? So Laurie, you'll start with you on this.
I think that right now in our whole culture, not just with our Asian Pacific Islanders, but with all of our minorities, they are experiencing this problem. It's like suddenly people feel like they have permission to hurt the other, people who are the other who don't look like them. So we have a huge job ahead of us as a nation to understand that we are a melting pot, that everyone is welcome here. We are strong because of our differences. And what we need to do is work with our school children, work with our communities to have more grace towards one another, Some of my very best experiences are with other cultures, and I'm always amazed at how much they enhance the United States of America. We all came here as immigrants, and right now we need to help their businesses. We need to help their small businesses. We need to make sure that the curriculum in school is culturally relevant to the kids. We need to make sure that the families feel like they're part of the school community. So all of those things, the fabric of our society, we need to touch each of those things and make sure that our Asian Pacific Islanders feel like they really are a part of Washington State, because they're a very important part of Washington State.
Thank you. JJ, I'm going to read the question again because it's kind of a long one. There's been a steep increase in the incidence of bias toward Asian American individuals, including racial vandalism, since the pandemic began. How will you help combat this wave of anti-Asian violence and discrimination?
At the risk of making this a boring interview, I'm going to at least partially agree with my opponent here. I do think that overall, it's not just limited to Asians. With all respect to the people asking the question, there are numerous other instances where people's personal property is being abused, and for that matter, public property. There is a general level of disrespect that we need to say enough. We want to live in a civil society. Let's behave in a civil manner. You don't have the right to break something of somebody else's or just yell at somebody else because you're frustrated. Get a grip. Let's behave. Let's all act like adults.
Okay, thank you. So the next question is, what do you think the state should do to combat homelessness? And JD, you start on this one.
Thank you. I believe homelessness is not a single issue. There are many causes. There's the mental health aspect. There's the drug addiction aspect. There's just also, to some extent, referring back to our previous question, there's the aspect of some people just want to act out. And as far as the drug addiction and the mental health issues, I do think there's a definite role for government to establish, I'll call it infrastructure. I really think it looks more like infrastructure than just a program of some kind to really address these issues. I do think that drug addiction does involve a police enforcement component. It's not just a benign personal choice. There's a definite criminal aspect to the drug addiction problem. Conversely, I don't want to see the folks with mental health issues treated as criminals. We need a kinder, gentler touch with them. In general, I hate speaking in generalizations like that so much because it's just not sufficiently pointed at times. But those are the kinds of issues that need to be addressed. And I'm willing once again to work with people on both sides of the party line, on both sides of the aisle to get there.
Thank you. Laurie, what do you think that the state should do to combat homelessness?
So my opponent actually just listed a lot of the major problems with why people are homeless. And so I'm going to add a few others. First of all, we as a legislature put in record amounts of money into fighting homelessness, trying to get more money to local government so they can fight homelessness on that level. The pieces that worry me beyond what JD already talked about are a lack of health care. Too many people still don't have health care, and one huge medical bill can make a family homeless within a month. The other thing is, right now, there's just not enough housing. So somehow we need to get builders building more rental housing. And finally, if the federal government doesn't actually act in the next month or so, we are going to see homelessness like we've never seen before, because people are going to be kicked out of their current homes. They're going to be on the street. Families are going to be standing in food lines. It's going to look like the worst economic disaster the United States has ever seen. So I really hope the federal government's going to step up.
Thank you. Next question, we'll start with Laurie again. What, if any, measures should the state take to address climate change?
So again, I serve, my seatmate is one of the main climate change people in the Washington State Legislature. And thanks to her and Joe Fitzgibbons, we have passed some pretty amazing bills to fight climate change. But as we watch the fires burning around us, we know we have not done enough, and we need to do more. We need to figure out the carbon tax thing finally and once and for all. It's been going on for years. It's time to actually get that bill refined and passed this session. We need to get to cleaner fuels, which that would do for us. We need to encourage more electric kinds of cars, but the other side of that piece is we need to figure out how to fund our roads, because even electric cars need good roads. And right now our roads are pretty dependent on gas tax. We want people to quit buying gas. That adds to the climate change problem. But in order to do that, we need to figure out a different way to fund our transportation within Washington State. So those are some of the big things ahead of us. And I'm actually hoping that the upside of us smelling all this smoke outside right now is that people will realize we have got to deal with this issue. We can't keep ignoring it, thinking it's going to go away.
JD, what, if any, measures should the state take to address climate change?
I don't think the state should be doing anything to address climate change. I disagree profoundly with the carbon tax. I believe the whole issue has been hopelessly politicized. We've gotten so far away from science on this that it's not retrievable. It's gotten over into the point of ideology, and science has been left in the dust. Electric cars sound great until you realize that the cost of producing that car or the process of producing that car involves a lot of carbon. So electric cars are not the answer. I do believe that business people in general are smart enough to figure out ways to reduce their energy consumption and to come up with means to address the issue as they see fit. I don't think the government should be involved in this.
Thank you. So this is the fifth question. The pandemic has revealed deep problems with our healthcare system, including mental health. What steps would you take to ensure that people have access to care and that they can afford it? So JD, you're starting this one.
Okay, I don't think that the pandemic has revealed anything that we didn't already know. There are certain issues with access, but I think those issues with access have been overblown. We know that if you go to the emergency room, if you have an emergency, you will be treated. I think some of the problems with access, to me, I'll define that as availability of services at reasonable times of day and night. Some of it is just structural. Doctors for years have only had their offices open Monday through Friday, 9 to 4. We need more urgent care type centers. As far as saying people don't have insurance, people certainly have had access to insurance under current programs. We have the healthcare exchange. People can buy insurance at reasonable rates. Some people say part of the problem is young folks don't sign up. Well, they don't see a good reason to. And I don't think you're going to change their minds. I think they're using their brains and saying, I don't need to have healthcare insurance. When I go in, I'll pull out my MasterCard and I'll pay for it. I don't see that we have so many issues with access that the government needs to get all over this. I think we have other problems that are bigger and more pressing. And let me just say, for those people who say our healthcare system is broken, I say to you, I completely disagree. We have one of the best systems. We have the best system in the world. We have accomplished more than any other country has accomplished in the last 30 to 40 years. And I'll stand on that.
Thank you. Laurie, the pandemic has revealed deep problems within our healthcare system, including mental health. What steps would you take to ensure people have access to care and can afford it?
So I agree that we have the best healthcare system that money can buy. The problem is only the people with money can actually buy it the way that we would hope it would work. And so access is a problem. There are a lot of people out there who can't afford healthcare. They do not have healthcare. So Washington State's done a better job than most states. When the Affordable Care Act came into place, we did the Medicaid match. So right away we could help our most vulnerable, poorest citizens get healthcare. The dilemma is there's a lot of people stuck in the middle who don't get healthcare through their jobs and they need to buy healthcare. So in the past year, we've passed a public option. So families for basically Medicare rates can buy into healthcare. And that's been another big plus in Washington State. But the idea that everyone who has healthcare everybody who needs healthcare can get it is just like saying everybody who needs a COVID test can get one. And that's just not true.
Okay, we've come to the point where there's an opportunity for each of you to ask each other a question. So, Laurie, I'm going to have you start with this, and you can ask JD a question, and then he will ask you a question.
Okay, I'm going to ask JD's advice because when we go back to session, if I'm the person there, we need to probably find $4 billion in the budget. So knowing that our biggest agencies are K-12, OSPI, the Department of Transportation, the Department of Corrections, DSHS, our social workers. JD, where do you suggest we cut? Which of those budgets do we cut and how much out of each to get us to $4 billion?
I think what the main approach we need to take is take a look not so much at the services provided as to look at internally and look at the staffing. We don't talk about the state employees. I don't favor layoffs. I do favor some smart staffing. And by that, I mean, this is some things that commercial enterprises have done, like Delta Airlines did this many years ago when they had a downturn. You have people who, you change their work shift to 4 days a week instead of 5. Does this reduce their personal income? Yes, it does. Does it keep them employed? Yes, it does. They have the security of a job, they have their benefits, but they have a bit less income to work with. This allows them to continue working. It allows the agency to continue working and providing the necessary services to the state employees, and all the voters who have paid for these services. So that's more the approach I would take. And then,
Thank you. Course, I think we hit the stop sign.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. All right, Laurie, it's your, wait a minute. JD, it's your turn to ask Laurie a question.
Laurie, what is your position on gun control?
So I grew up in Colfax, Washington, with hunters in my family. I'm very used to going out, and not me, but people in my family going out regularly and hunting. So, I grew up around hunters. So I have no issue with people owning guns. That said, there is no reason for anybody to have a gun that can kill 100 people in 15 minutes. There is no need for that gun. Hunters don't use those guns. They wouldn't be able to eat the meat. And those guns tend to kill a lot of little innocent children very fast. So I think we need common sense gun control, which does not impact the Second Amendment at all. Thank you.
Thank you. So now we have an opportunity for a 1-minute closing statement. And so since you finished, Laurie, I'm going to have you go first and then follow with JD.
Okay, great. Thanks, Annie. First of all, thank you to the League of Women Voters for once again sponsoring these forums. Deeply appreciated. I think a lot of people learn about us because of this. I love this job I'm in. It's been an honor to have it for the past 4 years. I'm hoping you're going to hire me for another 2 years. It's a job where you regularly have to come to the people you serve and say, will you hire me again? And I think what I bring is common sense, a lot of experience in K-12 education, 30 years, 4 years experience with Chris Gregoire in the governor's office as their policy director, and now 4 years in the legislature. Plus, I'm a mom, I'm a grandma, I'm a wife, so I have all the family experiences that work into the decisions I make every day, because we can't make decisions that don't impact all the families we serve. It's not about us, it's about you, the constituents that we're here serving, and I would deeply love to do that for the next 2 years. Thanks again.
Thank you. JD?
I also would like to thank the League of Women Voters. I really appreciate the time and effort that you put into these programs, and I think it's a great resource for the voters. My position is really pretty simple. I'm for liberty, I'm for smaller government, I'm for your personal rights. I believe you know how to run your life with minimal interference from the government. I think we have far too many regulations, we have far too many laws, and it's time for the government to back off, provide infrastructure like it's supposed to, but not get so involved in our day-to-day lives and telling us what to do. Thank you.
Well, thank you both, Laurie Dolan and JD Ingram, for participating in this forum. We thank Thurston County Media for producing the forum and the Asian Pacific Islander Coalition for its contributions. The forum will be available on TCMedia channels and on the League website and through YouTube shortly after the forums have closed. We're glad that you've taken this opportunity to view the forum. We remind you to vote in the general election beginning October 16th, 2020, and closing on November 3rd, 2020. Thank you. Goodbye.